Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
And welcome into Purple Access. Judd Zolgad, Declan Goff, and our buddy Chip Scoggins from the Star Tribune in Minneapolis, who joins us every other week. Tyler Fornes of VikingsWire.com joins us on the weeks that Chip does not. Chipper, we're in that weird sort of, I think, really only NFL dead period before training camp here, where teams are actually off trying to enjoy the 4th of July. Coaches, I'm sure, are sweating that their players don't get in trouble. But one thing we didn't talk about, I don't think last time that we discussed, was the Kirk Cousins press conference that I believe was after the first mini camp practice, where Cousins, I actually asked him about his contract, and he said, there's nothing new. I don't expect to speak about it or with the team about it until next March, which obviously will walk him into a very interesting period because he'll be on the precipice then of being a free agent for the second time in his career. Did that surprise you at all that he hadn't, that he acknowledged that there hadn't been talks? And I guess here's the most important question. If you're a Vikings fan, what do you think the plan is right now? And do you think that they know?
Yeah, I would say I was sort of surprised by that. I've been saying all along that I could envision like one of those scenarios where we show up at camp and like, hey, we got, players are reporting here, and oh, by the way, here's Kirk Cousins. We've announced that we've had an extension with him for a year or two. But he pretty much closed that door emphatically with you when you asked that question. I mean, he said, we'll revisit this after the season. So if you take that for, the truth and that there's nothing going on, it seems like when they broke it off, and they're going to play it out and on both sides. So I guess I was a little surprised because I thought eventually, Judd, we know Kirk wants the longer term. We know the Vikings want shorter term. I thought there was a chance they would meet in the middle, and maybe they can do that after the season, but I thought there was a chance they could meet in the middle before they arrived at training camp.
Well, it's weird too, because if he has a good year, it's going to cost him a lot more, in which case he might be gone. If he doesn't have a good year, would they want to bring him back? I think it's so intriguing that, at least for now, that we don't really have any clue what the plan is, because it's not Jaron Hall,
No, it's not Jaron Hall. No, I mean, he barely gets reps at. Now, granted, it's OTAs and minicamp as a rookie, but I don't think they drafted Jaron Hall with the idea that he's going to be the replacement. So, what is the plan? I think there's probably realistically 3 different plans that they're. If you had a whiteboard in Kwesi's office, plan 1, plan 2, plan 3. I think plan 1 is revisit this with Cousins, see how he plays this year, and revisit it, and possibly sign him to another, short-term deal after this season, if he's willing to do that. Plan 2, bridge quarterback, which would be the least attractive to me. Plan 3, which I don't think they want to do, is draft a guy and start him. I guess you could draft a guy and still have a bridge quarterback. I mean, you could marry those two, but I don't know that they have a concrete plan right now and say, this is what we're going to do. I think it's sort of open-ended.
Well, and I guess to go back to Kirk for a second too, Chipper, I'm curious on this one. So Kirk has said, and it's not surprising, and by the way, he's been paid very well for quite a while now by the Vikings. He has said all the right things about how much he likes it here, how much his family does.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting because Cousins has sort of thrived in his career by being defiant of things at times.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder how far you can push him before he says, and again, I'm assuming that he has a strong year. How far can you push him before he pushes back and says, you had a chance last year. Yeah. You didn't do it. You didn't talk to me that much. So I'm at the very least going to explore my options, because you got to think somebody, I mean, in this league, quarterback starved teams, somebody's going to step up to the plate with probably more than the Vikings can offer, given the guys that they have to bring back beyond Kirk Cousins.
Well, that's it. Yeah. I mean, we see it, take the quarterback position out of the way, but you see it a lot of times in the NFL where a guy has to weigh let's say Harrison Smith, right? Or whoever takes a pay cut. It's like, yeah, you didn't get the deal you wanted, but do you really want to go start over somewhere else at this age in your career? We see guys that'll, accept, I don't want to move houses, but my kids might be in school, blah, blah, blah. I like the area, I like the everything, so they'll stay. Quarterback's different. Let's say Kirk plays well this year. Do you envision another team giving him a 5-year deal at this point in his career?
Oh boy.
I would say no, but maybe I guess there could be a team out there that's willing to do it. But I think.
But how about a 4-year that's richer than what the Vikings can afford, assuming the Jefferson contract's done?
Yeah, there might be a team out there that says that feels like they're there. They're on the cusp of something, but again, Judd, he's not. Whatever contract he signs, it's not going to be cheap.
Right.
And I just don't think he's going to have a bad year, quote, bad year. I mean, I think the stats are going to be there when you look at what he's surrounded by, this system. He's healthy, takes care of his body. I think he's going to have another highly productive year, stats wise. So it is a fascinating thing to see how this is going to play out because, it's a lame duck year for him and for the organization in terms of the most important decision that they're going to make here in a long time.
Absolutely. And I think it was last week, if I'm not mistaken on this, Chipper, Mike Florio of PFT had a piece about how, and he's speculating here, but had a piece about how San Francisco and the Rams would make perfect sense to try to pursue Kirk potentially. San Francisco, to me, that's always, until Kirk's done playing or Kyle Shanahan leaves San Francisco, that's always going to make some sense. But, if Kirk has a good year, and I'm with you, second year in the system, he's going to have resources. And this offense should be really good. So I'm with you. I'm not predicting a bad year here. And if San Fran comes calling and says, you know what, we'll give you a 4-year contract and here are the figures and it's favorable, I could see Kirk saying, you know what, I'm going to take the chance to go play for my buddy Kyle.
Yeah, and I don't know what San Fran's, cap situation is. They got a lot of great players, so I got to imagine they're paying those players, pretty top dollar. So would they still be more inclined to say, you know what, we like this quarterback on a rookie deal. We don't know that the difference in, what, because
true,
again, Cousins is, even if he says, you know what, I'll take less to go play for a championship team, it's still going to be a lot of money. It's still going to be more than a guy on a rookie deal. And so I don't know if they would be able to squeeze it in there. Rams, yeah. I mean, I can imagine there's, we see bridge quarterbacks, and when we say bridge, we tend to think journeyman who's, never really done a whole lot. I mean, it's probably the wrong connotation, but teams may look at Cousins as a bridge quarterback to, until they can, if they're right there, feel like they have a chance to, and they don't want to go with the young guy, he might be attractive to a number of teams. But again, and I even if he plays out this year, I still think there's a good chance, depending on where they're drafting and how high they can move up,
right?
That they say, you know what, let's try to get something done with a shorter term, 2-year thing with Kirk and see if he stays until they can figure out in the draft who they're going to, who their guy's going to be.
Agreed. And look, 2 years would be ideal. Like that would be the sweet spot. But you brought up a question, which is, would a team pay him? Like, would a team go 5 years, 4 years? And the problem is, common sense says no, because you're not going to take him to age 40. You're not really going to want to do that. But we know for a fact when it comes to quarterbacks, common sense goes out the window. That's why I struggle to answer a question that I could definitively answer with most positions, because I don't know. And all it takes is a couple teams. Like the Jets have literally hitched their wagon to a guy who's what now, 40-ish?
Yeah. Isn't it?
It's hard. It's hard
but
to predict.
Isn't it fascinating? Every year, how many quarterbacks are going to first? I think there's going to be a lot this year. I mean, your top 2 picks are going to be quarterbacks.
Yeah.
We'll see what, Milton does at Tennessee. Just gigantic arm. If he has a good year, what people, I'm sure they'll fall in love with his arm.
I'm sure the jersey's on its way to your house already. I'm sure the Milton jersey will go right by the Manning one, and you'll be sucking down Surly's on Saturdays watching.
It'll be hard. It'll be hard for me not to wear the Manning jersey over it. I mean, you really have to do something to make me not wear.
I love the Manning jersey. That's the greatest ever. I'm not gonna lie.
My colleague Mark Craig just teases me to no end when I put on. He says I'm too old for the Manning jersey, but I'll never be too old for Peyton.
Well, and you weren't then. You were like 28.
Yeah, but 27.
No, I know, but at the time, but it's
when I bought it.
Now, if you went out and got a Vols jersey now from like Milton, then it's a joke. Then you're an embarrassment. But you're wearing a jersey from your 20s when you were guzzling beers, and there's nothing wrong with that.
That's right. I mean, it's fascinating because everybody is so desperate to find that guy, and then with teams that don't, you try to see if you can squeeze something out of a veteran who's you don't want to have to go through the growing pains of a young quarterback. So I have no idea what situation the Vikings are going to be in next year. Let's say they go 9-8. I think that's probably a realistic number, right? I don't think they're winning 13 games again.
Great.
But let's say 9-8, 10-7, whatever. It's not rebuilding, Judd. And are you going to be in position to go up and get one of those top guys? I mean, it's fascinating to me how they're going to kind of figure this thing out.
And then to that point, if you sort of go down that road, the offense, that will be 2 years that Kirk will have finally been in the same offensive system. One would assume that the defense is going to tick up. So I guess if you tried to go, let's say a 2-year extension with Kirk next March, you could sell him on, hey, this is coming together nicely. You're a key part here. We don't want to replace you. And we've got a chance to win. So like, I could see a sales pitch again. I just don't know with Kirk because his personality and like him at the podium is so different from who I think he truly is at times. I could see him, vindictive's too strong a word, but I could see him saying, hey, you know what? You didn't do it last March. I've got opportunities now. And to what you said before, if a team or two loses its mind and said, we'll do 5 years, he probably takes that.
Yeah. I mean, and you're talking about a lot more guaranteed money in 5 versus 2. I mean, he's rolled the dice on himself throughout his career. I mean, that's kind of been his reputation. I mean, we've seen it the way he's done his contracts and, everything that went on with Washington. So, I mean, I don't know who has the leverage in this situation. Him? I assume.
I don't think it's clear yet. I think it's going to become clear as the season progresses.
Correct. And, that it's going to be interesting to see also from just a team building standpoint of Kwesi's philosophy. Because I do think internally there is as there is probably internally in every NFL building, man, if you could hit on a young quarterback that you don't have to pay, $35 million, $40 million, how much different your roster building can be. But boy, you have to be, you just got to get it right. And so often teams don't get it right. And so is there going to be an appetite, even if Cousins plays well, to say, you know what, man, it'd be nice to have an inexpensive quarterback if we can hit right in the draft and build the team out elsewhere. I don't know. I mean, it's I just don't know that they're going to be in a position, Judd, draft-wise, to move up and get one of those top guys.
Well, probably not, because my prediction is this. I think the team that gets the first pick, and it sounds like there is, despite the fact it's not talked about a lot, it sounds like there's a gap between the Southern Cal kid and the North Carolina kid.
Yeah. Well, I think Caleb Williams, USC tanking this year.
That's what I'm saying, but they're going to be tanking. Like, I think Tampa Bay is purposely going to be as bad as they possibly can be. I think if the Cardinals get the pick, there's a good chance that they try to move on from Kyler Murray. So I don't know that it's going to be possible to trade up for that pick. Maybe the second pick, but I think the first one is going to be a team that says we are going to be as bad as we could possibly be, particularly to try and get Caleb Williams.
Yeah, and they're not trading out that if you got a shot to get him. May, I mean, he's terrific. I assume he's going to be the number 2 pick, and but it'll be interesting to see, this quarterback group. I mean, I think there'll be a handful of them that go first round, I assume,
Mm-hmm.
So do they fall in love with,
What's your assessment there?
3, 4, 5?
After May, as a guy who watches a ton of college football, what's your assessment of the first round quarterback class as a whole?
Yeah, I have to see. I mean, trying to think who all is going to be in there. I mean, Milton's going to be an intriguing prospect just physically. His biggest thing is, I mean, he was dynamic in the bowl game. Accuracy. If he, and again, what's going to be the knock? The system, the Tennessee system. Can you separate? But I mean, when you look at his, just his physical attributes in his arm, I mean, he has a unbelievable arm that is going to wow people, but it's just accuracy with him. So, and I'm trying to think who else is in that junior class or, going to be a junior. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think this is regarded as a pretty good quarterback class. So, they'll, probably not going to be 1 or 2, but 3, 4, 5, would they be happy with that quarterback? Right. We'll see.
And that's why, I mean, to certainly a degree here, why Kevin O'Connell was hired, because this is where you previously didn't have a person in that building who you trusted, and now you do. So, I mean, O'Connell, ultimately his time as the coach here will be judged largely by wins and losses and on-field play. But a very close second, I think it's going to be his first QB that he drafts, his first guy. And there has to be a trust there until he proves he can't do it, that he can get that decision right.
Well, and think about how, this was a conversation every offseason. It seemed like during the Spielman era, it was like, when are you going to get your guy? And, through circumstances that, Teddy's knee, it sent him down different paths. But this is a question that's been hounding this organization for generations, right? Can you get that franchise quarterback?
I mean, the last time that they looked like they had stopped on one truly was Culpepper.
Yeah.
And, he got off to I think he was basically the second best quarterback to Peyton in 2004, could have been the MVP, got off to that terrible start in 2005, and then, went down in Carolina with a knee problem, and that was it. But that's really the last time that the Vikings had a quarterback that they had drafted and developed who had any amount, because Teddy really didn't, had any amount of success and longevity, and we thought might be a long-term solution.
I know Mike thought Teddy was going to be that. Zimmer thought Teddy was going to be the guy. I don't know that he ever would have risen to, let's say he stays healthy.
Don't tell Declan that. Don't tell Declan.
I know.
He'll get very
I know.
upset.
I mean, there are people that
loves Teddy.
I know there are people that would argue that they thought he was going to be. I don't know. I don't know.
I think Teddy Bridgewater was what Mike wanted because he didn't make a ton of mistakes and he was very safe. And Mike thought he could win with defense. I think the problem now in retrospect is eventually at some point in time, and yes, things went out with Kirk as well for Mike personally, but I think at some point in time too, the game shifted to offense even more.
Yeah.
I don't know that you could bring Zimmer in now and say, just be a stout defense and actually be successful to be like a championship contender. 2014-15, you sort of still had that confidence the defense could take you a long ways. I don't know in the regular season that's as possible now.
No, especially when you see Mahomes and Burrow and Hurt. I mean, these quarterbacks, it's like
Jefferson. I mean, guys like that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough to say, you can just win with any quarterback and just don't mess it up. I mean, that's just not going to take you to where you want to go. So, I mean, it's I assume Kirk will get asked about it again, training camp, his first thing, and then it'll just be a storyline that we follow all through the season, and then obviously after the season, that's going to be a Big time decision.
I do think the one good thing for Vikings fans is I do not expect it at all to adversely impact him. I don't think it's going to bother. He's done it before. Well, I mean, hell, he played on franchise tags back-to-back years. But that's the one thing is I think his personality, I think he was disappointed that they didn't talk extension or offer one up. But but now that it's not been done, I think he'll be fine. But it sets up a really intriguing question about which direction does this team go, and also from that standpoint, like what's the threshold, what's the line for the Vikings to say, you know what, we can't let this guy go? Is
in
it a
terms
playoff
of
win?
Oh, that's it. I mean, it's like what
what's
do
the
they need to
line?
see? Yeah, what do you need to see that tells you, okay, you're on the cusp,
right,
of something? No, going back to your original point, it won't. I would be beyond stunned, if it becomes a distraction. I just don't think that's who Cousins is. I don't think it'll. We saw him just in our interactions at OT and minicamp interactions he had with players, take him out. I don't think it's going to be something he pouts about, something he worries, obsesses about, because he's been in this situation. And the other thing is, I mean, we talked about leverage a while ago. It's like he knows if he has a good season, he's getting a job somewhere, and he's going to get another payday. So it's not like, oh my gosh, this might be my last year in the NFL. No, it's not none of that. He knows he's going to have a job somewhere. So it might, if anything, it might, we see guys in contract years, how they perform. So,
and what's funny is the Vikings want him to succeed.
Yeah.
Like he's being put in a position and they want him. So like if he forces them to make a financial decision, that's a tough one. That's sort of the goal.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
so it's this weird, it's very interesting. It's very intricate.
Nothing would please him more than have a great season, make it, postseason run, and have to pay him. I mean, that's what you want. So, but, it also jacks up the price too for other people that might be interested in that too. So it's going to be that's why I thought there might be a meeting in the middle. But it sounds like there's not going to be, at least before the season.
Last question for you off the Cousins topic, but I have heard more and read more national stuff in the past month or so. And in particular about the loss of Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen. And the perception nationally is that the Vikings are rebuilding, that they've torn apart their roster, that Pat McAfee, who's, by the way, pretty damn good and a former player himself, talked about, the Dalvin Cook was a key reason Justin Jefferson was so successful and the loss of Dalvin Cook. What's your dime store theory? Because I think that talk is all so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm not a Vikings apologist, but those two guys, we watched them every game last year. I ain't going down the path of the loss of these two guys is going to affect this offense adversely.
Yeah. Names, popular names that we know. Like we equate that you think of someone in their prime, and that's how you just assume they're still in their prime because it's a big name and they produce a highlight. I mean, Adam Thielen was their fourth option by the end of last year, receiving option.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't, involved really at all. I think they'll miss Dalvin's home run ability, and we saw the splash plays last year. But I think when Kevin O'Connell talks about being more efficient in the running game, I think to me that is take out the zero runs, the -2 yard. I mean, they had so many of those.
Yes.
That it negated, not negated, but I mean, Dalvin had 3 or 4 really splash plays that either changed games or won games, or put him back in position to win a game. But man, there was just so many of those negative runs, or just runs where you're second at 9 or second at 11 or second 13. I think they want to eliminate those or minimize those. And I think that's where I don't know that the national people are actually paying close attention to those. They just think of Dalvin. He's been a productive guy. So I don't think it's going to affect their offense. I really don't. I think it's going to be a top 10 scoring offense again. I know there's been a lot of talk about them running the ball more and being more effective. I don't know what that means. They didn't really. Where did they finish? 27th in carries in the league last year.
But the goal is to get 2-3 yards, or three
Four
or 4 yards
yeah.
on first down. So now it's second. I mean, Kevin O'Connell's life is going to be based around being in third and short to set up opportunities. That's what he wants. He doesn't want a big. He's not trying to find a home run game. He wants efficiency. And Chip, this crystallized to me in the last couple of weeks, and I never thought about it, although we talked about this a lot at the time. Adrian Peterson's famine, feast.
Famine, feast.
Which was a great saying and which was entirely true. And that's what Dalvin was at times last season. But the difference is this. If you're going to be that, you need to be AP in his prime.
Yeah.
Because he would lose 2 yards, 1 yard, not gain a yard, and then how often break off 75 yards. That's not a recipe for success if you have a handful or fewer of big runs in a season.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah. And I don't know how many, Dalvin had total, and I just don't think that's what O'Connell wants with his system. No. I don't think he wants famine, feast. He wants efficiency, consistency. Would he want explosive runs? Sure. I mean, of course, but I just think I think it just the lack of consistency, I think it drove him crazy in terms of being able to, run the offense he wants. So that's where I do think it's just, hey, we know these guys, we know their names, we know their careers, we know what they've done. And you just assume they're still capable of that.
Yeah.
I had no problem with the philosophical direction they went. And I don't think I think this offense is still going to be highly, highly productive.
Agreed. Yep. Great stuff, Chipper. Have a great 4th, and we'll talk in a couple weeks. Okay.
All right, brother. We'll see you, man.
Take care.